Hello, once more, welcome back to the cellar. What are we doing this week? Well, this is just a little bit of an update. I'm going to start off with some post. We're going to have a little bit look at that and a bit more detail about what's actually turned up. There's a quick note on the displays video that went out on Thursday. Yes, I have found out why I couldn't get the screen dimming thing to work. Yeah, like a complete and utter moron, I was putting the power on the thing thinking, why isn't this working? Without realising the way that circuit is set up, you've got to turn it on in software as well. So we'll come back to that at some point. But firstly, post, things that have arrived this week, which I'm quite pleased with. First off, this thing. What the hell is that? That is a pin vise. Sorry, I'm partially off the top of the screen here. I'm trying to angle things so that you can see what I'm doing. What a pin vise is a bag, and in that bag there's another bag. Bags are good. Bags are obviously very good. What it is this. It's basically a very small handheld drill. You've got the normal sort of rotatable chuck. There's a good bit on the end you can hold, and you sort of hold it and drill. I wanted this, and I'll sort of try and hold it so you can see it. I wanted this thing for working with some of these circuit board stuff I've done. And what you have is some small drill bits, which are, I can open these up carefully. I've not opened this. Very small drill bits. These fit in the end of the pin vise, and then you can drill little holes. These are tungsten carbide drill bits, so they're quite fragile, but they're quite good. I've got some normal drill bits in there as well. So a drill. I can now, hopefully, and we shall find out, because I've got a job to do. I'm not doing it today. I've got to make some boards to mount some relays. Also turned up in the post. A lot of these, about 30 odd of them there. At the Joyce Valley Express. I had to buy a load of them just to get. It was cheaper to buy a load and get the shipping under a certain value. I've then got these, so let's open one of these up. Now, those of you who've been watching and paying attention, and of course, why wouldn't you be paying attention? Yeah, there's many reasons why you wouldn't be paying attention, but anyway, never mind. What we got is this, and again, for those thinking of displays, here's another one. This is a 7-segment LED display, and it's got a little chip and various bits and pieces on the back. This is a voltmeter. I've got problems with the power system here because it's not very well designed and it's not been very well built. So there's a little power block down here that you can't quite see. This is going to connect, it's got 3 wires, a red and a black, which will connect to my 12 volt supply, which I know works fine. Well, good enough. And a yellow wire you can connect to a voltage to measure. That's as long as it uses the same ground wire, you're all right. So I've got a bunch of these. I think I've got 5 of them. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a little board over here. Here's my little 3D printer. Just to create a little thing that can hold 2 of these to look at the 5 volt logic and the 5 volt power. And just tell me what voltage am I actually getting. What I'm wanting is, if the layout starts to reboot and is misbehaving, something I can look at to say, what voltage have I got here? Because if round here is 4 and a little bit volts instead of 5, I'm going to be doing some rewiring. Speaking of wire, because I've never got enough wire. 1602 purple wire. This is more for dropper wires on the reversing loop. I was going to do something which I thought, oh, this will be hilarious at this point, and say I haven't got enough wire and put this in the big box with all the wire I've got. Unfortunately, it's not somewhere I can reach it. So don't be worried for it. I've got a lot of wire. Didn't have any in purple. Needed purple. That goes over there. I've also, as mentioned in a recent video, I wanted some right angle connectors for the lighting on here. Again, a bag. I'm going to give up trying to open these things. So we can get into the other one. Hey, you can get in the other one. Right. What this gives me are these. This is a JST connector, but it's got right angles on it, so basically I can stick that into a circuit board that way and have the plugs coming this way. Need that for here because, as I've said, there's going to be things on top and I don't want wires sticking up. So I've got those. This means coming up in the not too distant future, we'll be adding some infrared lights to this, and the little board I was working with the display video will come down here. It will be connected, it will talk to this, and I'm going to see how it works. I'm going to try and commission probably just this innermost loop at the moment to start with. A bit of rubbish. It's got two infrared LEDs, one sort of there and one sort of there. I'll get the photo transistors. I'll get the LEDs pointed down onto it. I'll have a little board. I can power it up. I can see what I can do, and I can roll coaches along and say, does it detect them? How does it behave when the couplings go over? Same with wagons. That's the idea. And finally, that's not all the post stuff. Well, I've got more post, but this is all the railway related bits. Some of these. These are, if I can have a little look, SK6812 LEDs. It's in a bag, there's about 50 of them in there. And I've got another little bag with another 10. Again, I was making postage values up. These are programmable light emitting diodes. So instead of having an absolute massive LED, say you've got a building with 10 LEDs in it, at the moment that is at least 11 wires. So you can have 10 of one sort and one of the other, bringing power the other way, or whichever way around you wire it. Or you can have 2 wires going to the building and all the LEDs come on, or all the LEDs come off. These are a little bit different. You put in a power wire, a ground wire, and a data wire. And along that data wire, you tell Mr. LED what you want it to do. These are quite fun because this means you can tell it how bright you want it to be. And it'll just sit at that brightness until you tell it to do something else. These are colour ones. It's got a warm white LED on it, which is the yellow, the big yellow bit. Zoom in, the big yellow bit you can see on there. It's also got a red, green, and a blue LED. Hopefully you can have some fun with those. So, to be honest, if I could have bought just a warm white version, I would have done, but they don't make one. You've got to get the colour ones with it. You have to use the colour. But say, for example, my cinema. Normally, a couple of little fancy lights here. Ooh, we're showing a horror film. I can light it up with red lights. There's aliens coming. I can light it up with green lights. Christmas is coming. I can have all sorts of lights. A little bit of fun. I'm going to light some buildings up. They're going to be silly colours. Anyway, enough of that. That's post. What are we actually doing today? Let's have a look. Okay, job of today. This pink wiring bundle here, need another one. This connects a DTC8 to a PCF8575. Well, here there's another PCF8575 that the software is all set up for it to talk to. And here's another DTC8. I need to connect this connector to a connector that's going to go down here. And that's what I'm going to do in a minute. What that's going to do, if I bring up here, here's a little bit of a diagram. Now, I need to do diagrams like this for the rest of the layout. This is the only one that exists at the moment. But on here, you can see H block 0, 1, 2. This is the name on the MQTT system of the sensor that says, is there something in this block? Which on the layout is this bit down to there. Just that little bit is a block. I'd probably have to do something at some point on why the block system was the way it is. Anyway, so what I've got is I've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. 8 blocks, they already exist, we start at 0. On the layout, they start at 1. So 1 to 8, on the system it's 0 to 7. Mistake on my part, I should have just gone with 0 based on everything. Big issue over there though, obviously I've painted over all the dots, so when I come to do these maps for over there I'm going to have to run a train round and watch what changes. This job today is going to bring in this point, this point, this point and this point, and all the other bits of track except the reversing loops. So if we come onto the layout itself, this area yes, this bit no, these bits no. So I'm going to get set up to do that. I'm going to go dig up the tools and I'm going to show you how we make one of these cables. Don't worry, I'm not going to make you watch it all in real time. Honest. Okay, so here we are at the desk. What we got? I have 8 pieces of wire. It's a 10-way connector. I don't need to use 2 of the ports. Fortunately, I've got another DTC8, which I might have shown otherwise, but is this thing. Useful because it means I can see the markings on the connectors on the board, so I can see that. And the connector is actually this piece here, which is currently connected on the board behind me. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to connect one end first. So to do that, I strip off a little bit of wire, and it is a very little bit. If anything, that might actually be too much. You see, very little piece of there. And what this is going to do, this is going to go into one of these. Now, you can solder things to connectors. So why on earth do you use these things? A soldered wire becomes brittle, and over time it'll break. This goes in here like that. You can see that. The wire housings round it get crimped, and these pieces here grip the plastic insulator, these bits here grip a bit of metal, and you've got a reasonably robust connection. There's no solder, there's nothing brittle, it can still move a little bit, but it's gripped mechanically, and to do it I use this. I may have shown before. You can get all sorts of crimping tools on eBay, and you tend to get sets that come with something that looks like this. Lots of connectors, lots of little pins. I'll be doing the other end of the connector with that in a minute. And the crimping tool they give you is, without exception, rubbish. What you want is one of these. This is an iWiz whatever. So I put, that goes into there. I then partially close it like that. And you see it's in there, sticks out the other side. And this this crimp is a little bit big, so I have to do this twice. And then the wire goes in. Just need to move my light so I can see what I'm doing. The wire goes in here. It gets pushed in far enough. It can grip. And then it gets squeezed and then brought out. And that's, you know, have a look at it as it is here. So what we've got, this has partially gripped it. That's so I can see what I'm doing. It's gripped on the plastic and it's gripped on the metal. Could possibly have pushed that one a little bit further, but never mind, it'll work. And now I need to do is put it back in here, just to crimp the other side of that connector. So now it's in that way. I'll do that. Release. There are crimping tools that are slightly longer that will do all of that in one go. But that now is on there, and that's mechanically quite strong, but it's also electrically strong because it's gripped onto the stripped part of the wire. So I'm going to do the other 7 of those. Then we'll be back and we'll have a look at the other end. So I'm going to get on with that. I'll see you in a sec. Okay, all 8 of them done. I now need to do the other end. The other end is a remarkably similar process. It's just a different connector. So it needs a different pin. Get a few of these out. Persuade them to separate from each other. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 8 of those. There we are, 8 of those. I need a spare, I'll get them. Incidentally, if you do get any of these kits, you can get the spares. They're JST XH, I think these ones are. Yeah, when you see somebody saying, oh, it's a JST connector. Yeah, there's a lot of different types of JST connector. So again, a little bit off the end. These ones are a little bit different. When you look at them, let me bring one up here, the ends are a little bit larger. And these, you have to put in the vise and just squeeze, just a little bit, just to get the sides parallel. Otherwise, basically what happens is you put it into the crimp, which I'm trying to do now. It's a little bit awkward. And it wants to go sideways, which is never good. Now that's in there, that goes in exactly the same way. Gets a bit of a squeeze put on it. And then it comes out and it's the same thing. So again, I'm going to do all of these, then we're going to be back. Right, so that's 10 of those done. 8 of those done, it's a 10-way connector. So what I need to do now is look at how I'm going to wire this up. Now, I've got a spare one of these on the desk. There's a problem. Soldered the connectors on backwards. So even though it wants to go in that way, I need to hold it that way. So I need to put the first end of one of these, and these just push in, goes into that socket there. And that is for the first wire. I believe that, yeah, P such and such. So what I now do is bring this board over, and if I match this to the way things go, on here, number one is this end. So that there has to go to this end on the board. This is where things get messy. The other connector, I mean, it is fairly straightforward. It is just literally pushing it into a socket on the... Where did it go? Where did it go? This thing here. You basically push it in one end and it clicks. Unfortunately, the connector it's going to, I can't bring to the desk because of the way it's done. So I'm going to wire this up and I will then show you what it looks like. But the secret is, do it one wire at a time. So I'm going to connect that, I'm going to connect that to the other end. I'm then going to go from this one to the other end and so on. Otherwise you invariably find you get it wrong. So I'll be back in a minute. Okay, this is now in place. I've done a little bit of a tug test on these wires. One actually came out as I connected it, so I pulled it off and I've sort of tested them all individually and they've stayed on. They're okay at this end. I've not put the tie wraps around them yet. I'm going to do some testing first. So the next thing to do, I need to power up the layout. I need to power on the computer, which is currently firing up. And I'm going to check and make sure these little LEDs do as they're supposed to. And also check on the computer that the MQTT Explorer shows I'm getting the correct block going to the correct place according to my diagram. If not, I've got some rewiring to do. Or I can rename how some of the sensors work in the code. It's easier to redo the wiring. So I'm going to wait for that to all finish firing up, and then we're going to power the layout up and we're going to have a little look. Okay, that's now connected. If we come down here, the little display, remember my displays video? Well, this is a display being used to show me the status. That bottom line used to have 8 characters and 8 dashes. It's now got 16 characters on it, which is good. There's a 1 on position 4. Come up here. Position 4 has my N2 sitting in it. Now I know the original ones work, so I'm just going to do a very quick check, and I'm going to see whether position 9 works, which is this one. So come down here. This top DTC8 board, that one there, which is position 9, has got a glowing red LED. And I'm going to come over here onto the screen, and you see that G block 9 or G block 8 active. It's picked it up. So I can repeat that with some of the other ones. So that is on that. So the next one is this track just behind it. So I sit him on there like that. And again, we check, yes, the LED is on. Yeah, the screen is reporting, and over there is reporting. So that needs doing on all the rest of them. That works. What I've now got to do is get that into JMRI. Because at the moment, I mean, I can just sit over here like so. And I know that block is occupied. And the computer knows that block is occupied because that sensor has picked it up. And that tells me that knows it's block occupied. Now I need to fire up JMRI, so I'll be back in a mo. Yeah, okay, forgive me slightly here. I've not got the screen recording software set up fully. So here's the panel. One track is showing in red because it's got the K3 sitting on it. All the rest of the locos are elsewhere. So what I do is Panel Pro, Tools, Tables, Sensors, because this is where all the block sensors live. And G down to G block 7. The others don't exist, so I need to go onto here. And I'm going to come into this, and I'm going to say G block 8. Add a sequential range, add 8 of those. 8 and 9, create. These should be in here somewhere if I can find them. There we are. They're in. One's showing as active. I've not put the names in yet. I'll need to go in and do that. On here I've put the actual numbers in that reflect to the board. Yeah. So, what's the first thing I can do with this now? Well, the first thing I need to do is tell it to save that. Reason being I don't want to have to do that again every time. But that's the sensors now in here. Now, the first thing I need to do, because there's a track in here that's already set up, is this one here. It's in a much lighter track line than the others, and this is because it doesn't have a sensor connected to it. So it is going to connect to... It's not picked the block things up on there, so I should be able to... I think I've got to give it the block, that's why. So, it's going to be G block 9. G block 9. And we'll create that, and that has a sensor which is off this list here, which it's not showing on the list because I've not given it a name. Never mind. Right. Never mind. I'm calm. I'm not. I'm not going to get annoyed by this. Instead, I'm just going to go in here and I'm going to add the names to these. So that is going to come board G block sensor 9. There we are. I might as well do the rest of them while I'm here. Board G block sensor 10. Yeah. The beauty of all this setup stuff is you only ever have to do it once, as long as you remember to save the thing. And there's not that many. Well, I have got quite a bit more of this to do actually with some other bits and pieces. I just need to get them set up first. G sensor 15, and it's just once you've created these, you can edit them, but it can cause a few problems. G sensor 14. And as you can see, I've got the off by 1 thing here. It's the mix between the real world where we start counting at 1 and the computer world where we start counting at 0. Right. Sensor 16. Right. Should now be able to store that. That's Leopard Street done. Right. Come back onto here. Back into editing this. G block 9. Create edit there. Sensor should hopefully now be on the list. There we are. G block sensor 9. There we go. Okay, that. done. And the thing down here is now going to show in a little bit more of a bold colour. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put my little N2 on it and see if it shows it. And it does. Look at that. Isn't that wonderful? So what I'm going to do, take that back out of edit mode. I'm going to bring up a throttle so that I can throttle somebody. Which it's been one of those weeks. Ever had one of those weeks where you just want to throttle somebody? Anyway, so here we are. Yeah. N2 is going to rumble off into that section. So I'm just making sure the rest of the points are set. That's fine, and rumble back. And what that's shown me, options edit mode, come down here, there's this diddy little bit of track in here. Edit, mainline track, block is G block 9. There we are. And that little bit there is now the same. So if I go back out of edit mode and drive forwards, it should now all show in red. Here we are. And that's a fairly straightforward process. I need to do this for the rest of this panel. So basically all this point area over here now can be set up. I'm going to do that, then we'll be back and we'll run a train round and we'll see if it works. Catch you in a mo. Okay, done a little bit of testing. As you can see, the tracks have got a little bit thicker on there now. Not all of them, there's one or two bits I need to play around with, but anyway. Couple of problems. N2 sitting there, which is this bit here, and is not currently working. And there is another track, which is this one over here, that doesn't pick up properly either. The rest works. So if I pick my little friend up here and put him onto this one, it shows quite nicely. There's probably some wiring faults. I'm going to have a little play with that, and then I'll have to see how we go. But, yeah, so I'll catch you in a bit. Right, found the problem. Not fixed it yet. Wiring fault. 2 of the wires in this new loom aren't conducting properly. So it's either a connector at that end or a connector at the other end. Solution is remove the tie wrap. I'll take those 2 wires out one at a time and I'll just replace them. It should work fine. The block detector, part of it's working perfectly. It's just not communicating through to there. Again, this is the little thing, that little screen. I know the signal isn't getting that far. It's not that it's not working elsewhere. But the rest of it now works. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start Chamoisière on a run, and we can watch on the panel as she goes round. Now the secret here is this point here didn't used to record. So if I go for about there, she sets off. There you are. We can now pick her progress up around there. And because she's got coaches with resistive wheel sets, I can actually follow her progress all the way around. The other little red line is N3 sitting there. The freight train not having resistive wheel sets. So she's rumbling around quite nicely at this speed. Coming back round, back into the yard. There we go. And she is looking lovely as always. And this slightly old trying coach rake, but yeah. So overall, not quite what I was hoping to get completed today. I was hoping this would work without fault. Yeah. Anyway, this is Leopard Street, so that didn't quite happen, but there we go. So anyway, I'm going to leave it at that for today. I will catch you all in the next one. In the meantime, likes, comments, shares, subscriptions, etc. are all welcome. And yeah, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I will see you around. Thanks very much.